rational immunization. Only exists the weapon of goodness. The sky, full of jubilations and glories by the prophesied of the beyond, with their mission, fulfill their sacred duty of saving everyone on this grand world there of earth. The most elevated immunized ones, cultivating everyone for the same glories, for the same triumph of abnegation of oneself, simplifying with all true naturality, the bonanza, which is indifferent to ambition and greediness. Their present day and night and day, the powerful Grand Master will always be present, who opened the door there on earth to give to everyone the great universal redemption and showing you the prosecution of the great world triumph, rational immunization. Rational immunization is the mirror of everyone's integral happiness. It is the highest point among all points, universally. So, gathering these flags of the precatory, the soul of the well-doing for the others, which does not harm anyone. There are many naive living beings who think that in rational immunization are all the weapons, the goodness ones and the badness ones. They are mistaken because they lack in the necessary knowledge. In rational immunization is only the goodness. It is needed to explain well because where are the advanced living beings, who understand things as they are, also are the delayed ones, who understand according to their backwardness, making confusions, thinking that in rational immunization are the weapons of goodness and evilness. There are living beings capable of everything, according to their delay. They incorporate their potential without any knowledge to judge whether good or bad what they see. Many living beings do not need these replications, but many others do, because the potentials and feelings are very different from one another. This is why I, here, confiscate the ideas, the preambles, and shock cults from these hatched pigeons which fight for these miserable confusions, in lack of the feeling, of the knowledge, and true recognition. I therefore carbonize certain interpretations, which are not equivalent to the knowledge existing there. Rational immunization only deals with everyone's salvation, from all points of view. The thought is very vague, full of these fuses and semi-fuses, which confusingly live in these impertinent woods, which are the ideas in disaccord with this plebiscite. The plebiscite which is here, in these brilliant pages with the patterns and molds of the conduct of this being. Which being? The rational being or rational immunization. The school of the world is the school of evil, and because of it the malice reigns among the ideas of the human beings. Such malice that makes the living being think more often in evil than in good because he lives in this school there. That is why you confuse the good with evil and the evil with good. Influences of these processes that belong to this hierarchy of the invisible beings from the vacuum, deformed in a superior category to the deformed on earth, who are the human beings. And because they are deformed, the living beings from the vacuum are just like you on earth. All belong to this deformation, existing in the vacuum, the good ones and bad ones, like there on earth also exist the good and bad, and there are good and bad planets. Yes, the planets are also deformed, due belonging to this deformation, with their different lives and places of living. Then, what are between earth and sun are belongings of this deformation, and once deformed, they give origin to the good and evil. But in the rational part, in rational immunization is different, and because of it, only one justice reigns, that of good. There is no evil because what is rational is pure, clean, and perfect, and what is deformed is very different, dirty and full of defects, and for being like that, pretend to be what you are not. Now the infant says, "Ah, I thought that where there is good, there is also evil." Yes, evil is where there is good in the world of deformation, but with respect to rational, no. It is only one thing and do not deviate from its being in no way. It is necessary to give this pay back to the square fireflies, which like to interpret the things according to their square ideas, and to get the street organs to change the music of their minds and to receive the music as it is, in this literary dish of fortunate food for everyone, which is the knowledge of everything, how it is and how it is not, the food necessary for everyone, which is rational immunization. Then, the safeguarded ask, am I out of this prosecution? Yes, there is no doubt. Those who search for these questions and answers cannot be in this prosecution. Those are only in the burial ceremonies of the exhibition of ideas from the free thinkers, who think what they want and interpret the way they well wish. For those who do not seek confusion, I clear the minds with instructions and the real knowledge of things as they are. To the obedient ones. All the glories from the immunization. The memorable glories of the rational triumph are to all who are persistent and obedient. For the living being to possess rational immunization, it is necessary to accomplish the orders that receive rationally, and these orders are, read daily, the more often the better, to always possess the rational knowledge, be well informed and inform everyone else. reading a little bit, you will forget, which does no good. The living being, to receive anything and to learn, needs to be persistent, or else he will know nothing, and not knowing, he will not be immunized. How come the living being wishes to be and not do his part? Without knowing, he will never realize what he wishes. The living being, wanting to be this or that, needs to do his part. Otherwise, he can never be what he expects. In no way. The living being to be immunized needs to know the whole knowledge by heart, otherwise he cannot be immunized. To be immunized needs to know to explain what is written from the beginning to the end, and to do that, it is necessary to read every day, the more often, the better. Those who do not know how to read will be forgiven, but those who do, will not. Therefore, those who want to become immunized must read every day, to know by heart the knowledge which is here, the immunization, how it is, the beginning and the end of everything that is here. On the contrary, you cannot be immunized. It is the same thing as the living being not studying French and wanting to speak it, not knowing number and grammar and wanting to make accounts. You know very well that a person to become this or that needs preparation, and to be prepared to become immunized, it is necessary to read the knowledge to know how the immunization is and how to put it in practice. It is the same thing as the living being to become a doctor, it is necessary to study medicine, know this science by heart, to be able to account for his examinations. So is rational immunization, being this easier, there is no comparison. Therefore, those who know all these data which are here, those who know how to inform from beginning to end, for whomever it might be, will be immunized, and those who do not, will not. Those who do not know how to read, will have a discount, but will also be immunized, because they will listen what others will read, and starting to know rational immunization and everything that is written here. The immunized ones may count with the integral support from the rational, and those who are not, cannot do so in everything. Those who are not cannot count with rational superior because they do not want. For that reason, they dismiss the readings, dismiss the treasure of themselves, and if they have the will, in an instant they know everything that is needed to become immunized, because it is so little. Here it is the dish for everyone's goodness who wants to go from good to better. But those who do not want and do not care about the goodness of themselves prove that they only want the illness for themselves, and because of that they do not seek for their immunization. The days pass giving example, the certainty to everyone that everything is passing, and because everything is passing, it is why day and night exists. The days pass and the nights pass, telling to everyone that everything is passing. The night, synonym of darkness, of death; the day, synonym of a passing life, because the day is passing. And the living beings do not want to understand that everything is passing, that everyone is in this world just passing by, with an insignificant life period, full of passing events, good or bad, supportable and insupportable, happy and unhappy ones. Everything passes. The good passes, the evil passes. And because of it, where everyone is passing through, there cannot be happiness. Because people do not understand life, it is why they, many times, dislike it. They do not think what life is. If they thought what life is, they would say, it is true. The days pass by, the nights pass by, and everything passes by, as we also pass by due to us not being from this world. And those who are fortunate to know the beginning and the end of the world, rational immunization, those are happier than everyone, because they can and know how to say where they came out from, where they are going to, where everyone came out from, and where they are going to. And so, the illusion only got everyone to beg for happiness. In such a nut house is there, in that world, which is a true nut house, created by the living beings themselves, as the sciences are created. And those who think on what the world is, what everyone in the world is, will arrive to the conclusion that in the world the less worries you have, the better to yourselves. Yes, because it is useless the worries of such passengers who are everyone that inhabits the world. Because everyone is passenger and is passing by, like everything in the world is passing by, reason why you have to reduce to the minimum the worries, facing life the way it is, transitory. Who worries about something that is not theirs is in illusion, wasting their own time, aggravating themselves, annoying themselves with things and lost causes. Life is not yours, much less its belongings. Life is only an insignificant passage. Why then spend the entire life imagining if everything is in vain, if everything is lost? Yes, because the living being needs only to worry with useful things to himself. Because the living being does not think as life is asking for, it is why suffering annihilates each time more those who think they came into this world to last forever. No one thinks on death, much less wants to die. That is why you keep fighting there to win always and never reaching victory. You are defeated by the natural order of things, by the extinction of beings, which are born on earth to the knowledge of themselves. Therefore, everything is passing, everyone is passenger, and do that, it is useless to idealize. What idealize for? Idealize means, think on this, think on that, or think on that other. Since the living being is sure about why he is living, why he lives, it is enough to have a very great point of tranquility. The first announcements of the immunization. Rational immunization has already been announced several centuries ago by Nostradamus and St. John in the papyrus, which contained the following: after the tribulations that the world will go through, the universal redemption will come through rational immunization, and everyone will know what rational immunization is when it will be given to know to everyone the meaning of this great being. And so, after time, it arrives now the time for it to be known, universally. Arrive now, for everyone, the universal redemption. And why did they announce all the bad episodes the world would go through? Because they knew about the multiplication of the unnecessary sciences that would evolve among all, for everyone could be misunderstood and reigning, then, the confusions and wars of all kinds, because human nature is adapted to all beings, who would do horrible things. Then, they mentioned infinity of things which were going to happen, as they already happened and are happening. As Saint Odelia, as infinity of prophets of that time described very correctly what the world is like and what the world would go through, to which point everyone would get the end of it, which would be everyone's universal redemption, though a knowledge equivalent to this one, which is rational immunization. Knowing that, when it appeared in the world, as it now has, everyone would embrace it due to it being the way of universal redemption. Many other prophets showed up, each one with his prophecy, some right, others wrong. Some were adventurers, making their prophecies according to their imagination and their ways to interpret their adventures. Others were more right. You called saints those who lived during the Holy Inquisition and not any others, because they were not from that period. Notice how rational immunization is known, but only by name, however, how it is, no. Now yes, you are knowing how rational immunization is. In the Apocalypse there were some things untranslatable, due to the Greek, Latin, and Hebrew languages, which gave origin to the confusion on the way of interpretation of it, making mistakes with clauses of that tabernacle which was so correct. And for making confusion of interpretation, they understood the issues differently from what was written and untranscribed them. They thought that the mistakes were on the papyrus, when it was from those who did not know to interpret from the Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. They did not know the meaning of many words, and they made suppositions, it might be this, it might be that. And they wrote according to they admitted was making mistakes because they were not sure of what was written. That is why the Apocalypse varies in many things, some very right, many other not. Then, you ask, and why did they not compose it very clearly? I say, it was very clear, but to the translators lacked the necessary competence. They had a lot but needed still more to deepen in the Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. Because they did not deepen their knowledge on those alphabets, on those idioms, on those ways to write, it is why infinity of things passed by unnoticed, and they transcribed what was not written, and that is why it did not and still not working. That is why some things work and some others do not coincide with the prophecies and with the codification of the adventurers, who also messed up a lot. This is why the prestige is not overall pleasant. As Sanakam and other translators of goodwill, but little competence to translate from Greek in depth the Latin and Hebrew, which are the primitive ways of writing. So, it can be said, very good madrigals, but very bad recorders. And so, there they are, today, these reasons to give data and to continue the writing of things the way they are, needing to explain to all who know and to whom do not know. The reading brings the equilibrium and the immunization. In a post of light, fraternity and love, what should be done? To watch always to the benign consistencies multiply more and more to those who contemplate what should be contemplate. The laziness, greed, discouragement are for people who do not have in hand what I give to you. You should never contemplate evil and base yourself on it, because the more you contemplate evil and base yourself on it, the worse you get, the more you worry, the more discouraged you get, the more you live on sadness and unhappiness. Therefore, the living being who has the plant of salvation in hands, what should do? Contemplate, love, to always get better. Those who seeks the plant of salvation, does so because he wants to be saved, who contemplates, does so because he wants to be contemplated, be served, and he will be so, beyond need. Therefore, the time the living being spent contemplating evil, to think in this, in that, or in that other, worried about this or that, with everything that annoys, bothers, and despair, must contemplate what is the most useful, what gives happiness, encouragement, aggrandize the inner, and strengthens from all points of view. You must contemplate the writing. But the evil in many is to preoccupy with evil when they have tranquility at hand, which is the writing. Innumerable times I have repeated, read, the more you can, to free yourselves from all these contraventions you are subject to, due to depending on the material beings, on matter, on evil. Then, to form the vocabulary, you constituted the material being, which divided in prenosyllables becomes, matter or material. And due to the vocation of the evil life being territorial or terrestrial, you are subjugated by evil, by the beings adored by you, adorned and lapidated, invoked by this being from evil's domain. Dominated by evil, and not dominating evil, you are sucked up by evil. That is why I repeat, read for you to be healed from all that dizzying turpitudes. And you, know. Once in a while you get dizzy because you are evil, for wanting only evil. Yes. Because I put the good in your hands and say, read it. And why don't you read, why don't you obey? Because you do not want goodness, you want evilness. And because you want evil, it is why you worry more about it than good. And that is why you become confused with everything, annoyed by everything, suspected of everything, angry for nothing. Finally, a series of discontentment, of discouragement in the living being saying he is indeed pushed, living with the head full that he cannot stand it anymore. All of this, why? For being harmful to yourselves. And to the harmful ones, so it happens, because you are harmful due to your wanting. And so, to free yourselves of all of this, it is there, in hands, your equilibrium, which is the knowledge I give you, of things the way they are. I tell you to read innumerable times. And where is the request accomplished? I say, read. And your consciousness already tells something else very different, like someone who does not have time to take care of the goodness of oneself. But you have time to take care of evil, and who takes care of evil, suffers because only thinks on everything which is evil. The more you think, the more evil you become and more distant from good you get. Goodness straightens evilness, but evilness does not straighten goodness. And so are the effluviums of those who live in this ardent fireplace of matter, which content is evil and evil is its product. The rude ones want to find good fruit in evil, which is the material being. Only ideas of rude ones. The rude ones, of good, do not want anything, and do that they do not have time to read, they do not have time to worry about good. They only have time to worry about what is of rudeness, of evil, which is the material being. Matter is so disgusting that you repel it when it melts and know that all of this is a disgusting mud pit, with a high apparent value, but with no real value. Because appearances are not true, and these noblemen of darkness keep trying to feed with these worries, always cursing this material life, basing themselves more in evil and putting good to the side, saying that good is to when there is time. Read. Only when I have time. You don't have time to worry about good, only to worry about evil. So, what do you want? Evil. You think on good, but you do not search it, you do not have time to read. You do not have time to worry about good, you only have time to worry about evil, and so going from bad to worse. There are living beings who think that they are very knowledgeable, and they live in this pig's knowledge, always bad, because evil continues. Who wants to have his ideas clean, clear, and at ease, seek for good, because only good develops everything from good to better, and evil only takes everything from bad to worse. Living beings that do not have time to read, only have time to worry about evil, seem to have good sense, but they do not. They seem to regulate, but they don't. In mental institutions there are people with more sense than many who are outside and should be inside. Those who are outside are the ones who say they do everything to go all right. How dare! You already see that they do not regulate. They are always thinking and worrying about evil, when they should only worry about good, to go always from good to better. The living being is not a machine to work day and night without stopping, he must have his time of resting, his times free. And so, I hear always waking up these youngsters who live sleeping with their eyes open and do that they cannot see what is right, where the conveniences are to go always to better and not to worse. Waking up these Turks, who think they are in Turkey and go rounding up customers, but the customer does not help in any way. Instead of first coming to the right place, no, they first go to the doubtful point, for afterwards, coming to the right place. You still should consider yourselves fortunate in having me, here, rational superior, showing you the good and correct. The dominion of the world through the immunization. Rational immunization and everyone covered by it have the possibility to be happy in everything, because they know the end and beginning of everything. Rational immunization can take over of everyone very naturally. Like this insignificant comparison, the sun with its light focus, illuminates everything and everyone, so everyone can see what the eyes can reach, or what is in the eye's reach. The immunization on the same condition, only different because from the sun you see the light and from the immunization you feel it, and with time you will be able to see it. You see the sun's light because you know that the sun belongs to this deformed world, and for being deformed, you only see by means of fire, because the deformation is made by fire. Because you are like that, it is that you at first do not see rational immunization, you only feel it. And on this feeling, through this contact with it, it is all you need to know everything. It is a different light, which you do not see right away because you are not pure, you are neither clean nor perfect, but deformed, as you already know why you are what you are. After everyone is immunized, the sun will be replaced with this light, which is rational immunization, because this light governs the sun and all planets. By being immunized, the influence of the sun will be null, because you will not be depending on it to see and know how things are. You will be depending on rational immunization, which clarifies everything for whoever it may be, what is wished and what is needed. Then, the primitive ones to be immunized will be dominated by this light, which is rational immunization. Night and day illuminated, and many times not even noticing it due to the worries, distractions, but they are immunized anyhow. As the sun lights up earth night and day, the immunized one will also be illuminated night and day. Yes, there are the night rays of the sun, which turn about earth, like a kind of shadow from a body. The shadow is the reflection, it is the ray of life that the sun generates. Once the living being is immunized, everything goes on progressing naturally, for his own good. And due to everyone in the world needs it, which is the living being that would not want to become immunized. The living being asks, is it then, a kind of another life? And I reply, no question about it. The immunized one does not suffer at all, and the enchanted one suffers each time more. The immunized one always from good to better, and the enchanted one always from bad to worse. If you now think that suffering in the world is horrible, the more you march into this enchantment, the worse you will get, always. Because suffering is already irresistible, and always getting worse, it is why when the writing starts to be announced, when the world will know what this is about, there will be no one who will not take it with nails and teeth. And so, rational immunization, very soon, will be known to all. The deformation has a strong influence on mortality. And for being the law of deformation so veridical, it is that there is the transformation over everything in all points of view. Everything transforms, and because everything transforms, that is why the mortality reigns in the world. No one dies, no one disappears, but transforms. Everything is so done by the law of the deformed nature, that is why the transformations of everything arise from that, of ideas, of wishes, thoughts, and ways of behaving. The living beings, in life, transform their ways of behaving, their culture, their way to act, their way to face things, and what they like. There it is the law of deformation. Due to being deformed, it is why you pass by these transformations. Everything transforms, since from generation, since from start of the body's formation and after the body is made, there always is infinity of transformations. Today the living being has one thought, after years he has another, and so on, always on modifying. With the law of transformation nobody can afford, because it is a natural law, the law that rules everyone and everything natures. Today the living being is young, jumps, skips, and does everything. Tomorrow he is old, with a stick in the hand, goes on living shuffling his feet. No one can afford the natural law. It takes the picture to its place and the muses to the recognition of life of puissance and greediness bad reflected. And so, everything reaches the conclusion I have always stated. Rational immunization will reign among all, universally, very soon. Therefore, brilliant days, brilliant steps, and brilliant times of successive glories. Culminating days, culminating treasure, and culminating hours multiplied for good. Veredictum always right, which is written there on these pages. Brilliant rational words, which never were nonsense words. The influences of the inhabitants from the vacuum, the true soul is the heart. But due to vain category, you forged it. Invisibly, never existed, but the living beings, inhabitants from the large vacuum, which rule by a hierarchy like the one from the living beings there on earth, for being deformed into different categories. Then the infant asks, and are there in the vacuum more living beings than here on earth? I reply, no. Because Earth is a true animal place, producing lives of all forms, vegetables, beings with their large hierarchy, animals, beings with their hierarchy and very big differences from one another, land and water, both are living beings, factories of living beings. Therefore, in the space, there are only inferior beings, which are divided in parts, with differences one from another, for being the sun the generator and creator, the moon acting with its magnetic effects, as a coadjuvant, and the stars with their salutary influences, electrifying currents which fertilize the formation of beings. And so, many people used to dream with the souls from the invisible world, as if they existed. Completely suggested by these things that you think they exist, but they don't exist. The suggestion has great part of magnetic influence, making the living being see these fantasies under the magnetic power. Therefore, the soul, only one, which is the heart, which is the soul of the body, the soul of life. In it are the good and the evil feelings. It is the owner of the body. It is the first to feel the good and bad things. And there still are living beings who dream about these existences, which, in reality, you never saw it to be able to prove it. It is the world of the blind with open eyes, and that is why you do not know how to divulge these things. You see, but do not know what you are seeing. You learn things, but without being certain if they are true or not, and go on talking as if you are sure of what you were talking about. Never seeing the existence of such things, to know whether you were right or not. And so, the living beings from the vacuum, therefore being endowed with a great magnetic and electric force, it is that they take advantage from the magnetic force they have. They present themselves on earth in front of anyone, as they want to show up, as a relative of the living being himself, as a saint, as an Indian, or any other way they want to. And the living beings who do not know these things nor know how these things are done, say that show up in front of them his mother, or this or that one spirit, as they may also see of any other person. They appear as they want due to the great electric and magnetic force they have. And the living being who does not know these things, does not know how to divulge them nor define them, say that, indeed, immortality exists, and get convinced of this false reality, due to not knowing how these fantasies are made of. Therefore, it is admissible that those who do not know or are not aware and has seen these things, think that there are spirits and on immortality. Then, those who have seen and used to see, start to talk about the passing they will do upon dying, in the hope that during the spiritual life they will be happier. Those are people who suffer and say they are paying what they did in past incarnations. That is why many have the false certainty of immortality. But, if they knew how these movements are made, how these things are done, they would interpret it differently. That is why people are still behind for the truth of truths. That is why Spiritism is still standing. When you get to know how to divulge all these fakes, Spiritism will finish, the experiences will stop, and everyone will be firm with the certainty about things. Life of the foreigner is of those who live out of rational superior's journey, lost and losing themselves on this world, in this valley of tears and pain, seeing there the divulgation of the correctness, of the highest good from rational superior, and even so, still asking for mold of sufferer. Living in peregrination, with a faith of nomad Jews, being able now to drink the water of happiness from the fountain of this writing, thinking this to be a dubious fountain, due to you living with so many knots in the entrails. Knots of pure rudeness, drunken in this world, which is a request of misfortunes, a journey of pain, in this allegoric hill of suffering, everyone suffering through this fountain of lost people, laughs of pain, in passing of everything. Rude, drunken, and convinced that you will not suffer, but always suffering. Life of rotten ones in life. And so, what is this world worth? Nothing. What are all in the world worth? Nothing. The illusion is what valorizes the things, until be disillusioned. And after the disillusion, things do not have any value anymore. By that, you may see how this is a fountain of lost ones, always living full of miseries. Many times you do not notice the illusion, blinded by it, and when disillusioned, it is that you see all the wasted time, how much work in vain, without a need, how much discontentment without gratitude. And so, the best in life is not to mind its belongings and do not valorize anything, because nothing has value. What makes the living being attach a value to this or that is the blindness of illusion. It is because he is in illusion, not equilibrated, a true drunken. That is why the life is of the unconscious, because it is clear that nothing is done with conscience. Where there is illusion, there is no conscience. Where there is fantasy, there is no conscience. Deceived, supposing they have conscience on the judgment of things and falling into contradictions on what is said, due to seeing that there is no conscience. Where there are tastes, illusions, and ideals, the conscience disappears, because today you like it with conscience, tomorrow does not like anymore. Where is the conscience? Where there are adventures, there is no conscience. You use conscience as an excuse given to the good interpretation to your conveniences. To realize a plan idealized by yourselves, you talk about conscience. I like this with conscience. I have conscience of what I say. I do not like this with conscience due to this or that. You do not like it today, but tomorrow you will like it. You do not do it today, but tomorrow you will. You do not accept it today, but tomorrow you will. You do not accept it because you have conscience. Tomorrow you will change and accept it due to this or that. The conscience of everyone is not trustworthy, it is deceiving and passing. If in life itself has no warranties, how come can it be found in conscience? If life is not positive, how come can conscience be positive? It is because you are not pure, clean, and perfect, but impure and imperfect. And because of it, in your conscience there is no solidification for the person to stay at a certain point and be able to say that he has a pure, clean, clear, and crystalline conscience. Those who say they do, fail to say the truth to those who know what human beings are alike. Human being is a sufferer, he is traitor of himself and of the incautious ones who do not understand the nature. Therefore, what are you in the world? Apparently you are everything, but nothing in truth. True blinds with open eyes, who goes on saying that you are right, as if you were from a right nature, from a right consciousness, as if you were pure, clean, and perfect. The disequilibrium in the UNCONCIOUSNESS. The conscience of the virile suffering human is a conscience of misery and pain. But many are based on the talk, so and so has no conscience, if he had, he would not do what he does. Parrots who learned to talk about conscience because they heard the other talk about it thinking they were very right and acting in a ridiculous and shameful way to those who know life. Then the infant asks, and how can we stop being so unbalanced in relation to rational superior? I say, it is necessary to read a lot, not just a bit. Read these rational writings a lot to become integrally immunized. Then, your faulty conscience from a savage animal disappears and remains the true one, which is the rational consciousness, which you use there, in the world, to call without knowing. There is the subconscious, and this one is superior to the conscious. Then you say, the subconscious. But the word is rational immunization, and you know that in rational immunization there is no hierarchy, once immunized, everyone is equal. In the subconscious, there is superiority between one to another, and being rational immunization a natural thing, everyone will be immunized and everyone will become equal. This is a warning to those who think that consciousness is a solid and perfect thing, and in examining the things, one sees that it has nothing solid, and even less perfect. Then the infant says, what is it worth to us living like that? I reply, it is worth nothing. Because you came from nothing, you are nothing, and into nothing you return. Therefore, you give so much value to everything which is worth nothing, due to you being inebriated, in illusion and betraying yourselves. Life is summarized in a roger of misunderstanding. And the living beings, at the same time they understand each other, they are misunderstanding. As it is, you live in agreement for a while and disagree at a later time. Due to the rogers of life, due to the effluviums of epiperiums, due to the whispering chrysanthemums, due to the wreath of frauds created without limits, which subjugate the beings to live like this, horribly. And so, in all walks of life, everything lives in the pale, pretentious, and stupid life of the Cleopantums. Cleopantum means educated with authority to reach an elderly age without having the tyrosinium of the true things to be able to live without being bored. Where there are worries, there is backwardness. Where there are complaints, there is backwardness and suffering. What is it worth to the living being worried today, being so afflicted, and in a short time being happy and satisfied? Who worries as a retarded one, is a Cleopantum. The living being who learns not to worry is a living being with a lot of rational equilibrium, and the living being who worries about everything is an unbalanced, is a beast, is an uneducated one with the title of civilized, without being so. Therefore, the intelligent living being, the king of the wise men, never worries about anything. The mediocre being worries about everything and suffers the consequences of his mediocrity. The living being who has the rational equilibrium does not mind the mediocre, to what this one does or says, but faces the mediocre the way it should be faced. See, therefore, that the world is so far away from the rational equilibrium. And that is why you live like beasts, in misunderstanding, without knowing what you are doing, without knowing that all of this is not worth anything. And so, the consciousness always putting the living being in disadvantage. If everything was deeply ruled by consciousness, it is clear that there would not be injustice. If there were consciousness, there would not be greed, ambition, or betrayal. Where is the people's consciousness? Nowhere. Because some want to be better than the next, but everyone is equal. There is no consciousness. Consciousness only exists in name to enchant the retarded ones who cannot see, because if there were consciousness, you would love the fellow one as you do yourselves. Therefore, the living being's consciousness is an arrangement of the disguised ones, of the Judas, so that, with this Kabbalah, they triumph with their desired ways and win with their conveniences, their desired points.